The Confession of Leo Taxil about Freemasonry. Part 3. These quotes pertain directly to the Freemasonry hoax. Quote 8. In my book, Are There Any Women in Freemasonry? I created the part of a Grand Mistress of Palladism, a Sophia Sappho, disclosing only the initial letter of her alleged true name, A.W. I confided the whole name to my doctor friend. He believed in the existence of Sophie Walder. Let us understand each other right. Because of books such as Monsignor Murin's, the doctor believed in Palladism and in the various individuals, heroes of my hoax, who began to appear therein. But I did not try in the least to make him believe in the reality of the supernatural manifestations which had to be told. Renewed tumult. A monk bursts out laughing, and begins to applaud. There is deep amazement by priests who sit next to him. This is how I asked my friend the doctor to work together with me. He said, "Do you want to collaborate on a work on Palladism?" As for me, I am thoroughly familiar with the subject, but the issue of rituals is far less interesting than recounting adventures as a witness, especially unbelievable ones. Besides, to move good souls best, the narrator must himself be a hero. Not a convinced Palladist, but a zealous Catholic, having put on the Luciferian mask in order to make this mysterious inquiry, at the peril of his life. I will give you a pseudonym, because we shall say that for all sorts of reasons, the author cannot surrender his name to publicity. For example, he still has to write an inquiry about the nihilists. Laughter. You will be known only to a small group of ecclesiastics. That will be enough. You will hand over to me the route of your voyages, whereupon I shall design an outline which you will only have to embellish. Then I shall recopy your manuscript, correct it, cut out some parts, and above all add a few ones. Yours will be the medical part, the description of towns and some narratives. Mine will be the technical aspects of Palladism, information on all the individuals who are going to appear, and most of the added episodes. I need your collaboration for some 30 or 40 installments altogether. Now don't worry about denials. As you noticed in the works I gave you to read, there are two kinds of Palladists. Nuts who really believe that Lucifer is the good god, whose cult must be kept secret for a few more years still, and the wire pullers, who use the nutty ones as excellent subjects for their occultist experiments. Neither sort will be able to protest publicly, since the first condition of belonging to Palladism is the most rigorous secrecy. Besides, should some of them protest, their denials would be without effect, since they would appear to have been made in self-defense. My doctor friend agreed, and in order to strengthen his own belief in the existence of Palladism in spite of the hoax of marvelous facts attributed by us to its triangles, I let him receive several letters from Sophie Walder. Sophie was indignant that he pretended to have met her. The doctor faithfully related these letters to me. After receiving 3 or 4 of them, he told me, quote, "I am afraid that this woman is going to make a scandal and demonstrate that the load of crap we spout about her is sheer nonsense." Laughter. I answered, "Calm down. She protests for form's sake. In reality, she is thrilled to read that she has the talent of walking through walls, and owns a snake who writes prophecies on her back with the tip of its tail." Laughter. I got in touch with her, and was introduced to her. She is a good girl. She is a Palladist hoaxer. She laughs her head off about all that. Do you want me to introduce you to her? He wanted to indeed. Boy, was he happy to strike up an acquaintance with Sophie Walder. Several days later, I forwarded to my friend a letter from the Palladist Grand Mistress. She agreed with the introduction. We were to meet at my house, and go from there to Sophia Sappho, who even invited us for dinner. My friend came to my house in ceremonial full dress, as if he was invited at the Elysee. I showed him the table in my house and then told him everything. Or, at least, almost everything. Sophie Walder, a myth. Palladism, my most beautiful creation, only existed on paper and in a few thousand brains. He could not believe it. I had to show him some proof. Once convinced, he found the hoax even funnier, and kept on working with me. End quote. Here, Taxil is speaking of Dr. Hoax. Quote 9. Among the things I forgot to tell him, there is one which he will learn at this conference, namely the reason why I picked Dr. Battelle as his pseudonym. Allegedly, it was to stress the offensive character of war against Palladism. But my own true reason, my intimate reason as a dilettante hoaxer, was this. One of my oldest friends, deceased by now, a hoaxer of the supreme category, was the illustrious Sapec, prince of hoaxerism in the Latin Quarter. In a way I was bringing him to life again without anybody's notice. Then Sapec's true name was Battelle. Long laughter. However, my doctor friend was not enough to work my plan out. In The Devil in the 19th Century, my plan was to set the stage for the conversion of a Luciferian Grand Mistress. The book one had authored introduced Sophia Sappho under the blackest colors. I had taken pains to make her as distasteful as possible for the Catholics, the accomplished type of an incarnate she-devil, wallowing in sacrilege, a true Satanist, such as one meets in Heisman's books. Quote 10. Diana Vaughan. I could not ask her point blank. I studied her first. Little by little, I interested her in devilry, which greatly amused her. She is, as I said, rather a freethinker than a Protestant. Consequently, she was amazed to find out that in this century of progress, there are still people who believe seriously in all the nonsense of the Middle Ages. Voice. But we didn't come to listen to these things. Other voices. Keep on. Keep on. Leo Taxil replies, it is surprising that those who get mad at what I am saying now are precisely the same persons who, in their newspapers, urged me to speak. I proceed. My first approach to Miss Vaughan was on the subject of the letters of Sophie Walder. She agreed to let them be written by one of her friends. I had the proof, thusly, that women are much less talkative than one says, and that if their weak point is curiosity, on the other hand one can count on their discretion. Miss Vaughan's friend never boasted to anybody to have written Sophie Walder's letters. Besides, there weren't many. Finally, I convinced Miss Vaughan to become my accomplice for the final success of my hoax. I drew a fixed agreement with her, 150 francs per month for typing manuscripts as well as for letters which should be copied by hand. It goes without saying that should trips be necessary, all her expenses would be defrayed, but she never accepted any money as a gift. In fact, she enjoyed the prank quite a lot and took a liking to it. Corresponding with bishops, cardinals, receiving letters from the private secretary of the sovereign pontiff, telling them fairy tales, informing the Vatican about the dark plots of Luciferians, All this set her in an inexpressible gaiety. She thanked me for associating her with this huge prank. Had she possessed the great wealth we attributed to her to make her prestige greater, she would have never accepted the price agreed for her collaboration, and further she would have paid for all the costs wholeheartedly. She was the one who let us discover the existence of private postal agencies in order to reduce expense. She had had the opportunity to have recourse to one of them in London, and told us about it. She also told me about the alibi office in New York. The Devil in the 19th Century was mainly written to introduce the existence of Miss Von Hoos, to play the main part in the hoax. Had her name been Campbell or Thompson, we would have given our sympathetic Luciferian the name of Miss Campbell or Miss Thompson. We merely turned her into an American, born by chance in Paris. We let her family originate in Kentucky. This allowed us to make her part as interesting as possible by multiplying extraordinary wonders concerning her, which nobody was able to check. Laughter. Another reason was that we located the center of palladism at Charleston in the United States, with the late General Albert Pike, Grand Master of the Scottish Rite in South Carolina, as founder. This celebrated Freemason, endowed with vast erudition, had been one of the highlights of the order. Through us, he became the first Luciferian Pope, Supreme Chief of all Freemasons of the globe, conferring regularly each Friday, at 3 p.m. with Master Lucifer in person. Explosion of laughter. A most curious point in the story is that some Freemasons joined in the prank without in the least being asked to. Compared with the tugboat I had dispatched hunting for sharks in the coves of Marseille in my early years, the boat of palladism was a true battleship. With the help of Dr. Battelle, the battleship turned into a squadron. And when Miss Diana Vaughan became my auxiliary, the squadron grew into a full navy. New laughter. We saw indeed some Masonic journals, such as La Renaissance Symbolique, swallow a dogmatic circular about Luciferian occultism, a circular dated July 14, 1889, written by myself in Paris, and which I disclosed as having been brought from Charleston to Europe by Miss Diana Vaughan, on behalf of Albert Pike, its author. When I named Adriano Lemmy second successor to Albert Pike as Luciferian sovereign pontiff, then Lemmy was not elected Pope of the Freemasons in the Borghese Palace, but in my office. When this imaginary election became known, some Italian Masons, among which a deputy at the Parliament, took it seriously. They were annoyed to learn through indiscretions of the profane press that Lemmy was secretive toward them, that he kept them aloof from the famous palladism which the whole world spoke about. They met in Congress in Palermo, constituted in Sicily, Naples and Florence, 3 independent Supreme Councils, and named Miss Vaughan an honorary member and protectress of their federation. E-voice. That was a successful prank. Another listener. These Freemasons were your accomplices. Leo Taxil replied, "You bet." May I say again that I had only 2 auxiliaries who were in the secret of the prank, my doctor friend and Miss Diana Vaughan. Quote 11. It is a bit unusual indeed, that we managed to get our staggering stories swallowed in our 19th century. I ask myself, however, to what extent the high approvers of unmasked palladism have the right to get NGRY today. When one understands that one was fooled, the best thing to do is to laugh with the audience. Yes, Mr. Abbott Garnier. And your getting cross will make you even more laughed at. Abbott Garnier. You are a scoundrel. Attempts are made to try and calm down Abbot Garnier. Leo Taxil. When the tumult calmed down, those hoaxed by Palladism can be divided into two categories. Firstly, those who were in good faith, entirely in good faith. They were the victims of their theological science and of their eagerly pursued studies of all that touches on Freemasonry. I had to immerse myself in these two sciences in order to imagine everything, and in such a way that they wouldn't realize it was a prank. Can one believe, for instance, that it was easy to take Mr. de la Rive for a ride? He, the embodiment of an inquiring mind, who examines the slightest trifles with a microscope, and who could beat our best investigating judges. He can boast of having given me trouble. My whole Palladism had been solidly constructed as far as its Masonic part is concerned, since some Freemasons, even 33rds, if you please, did not take it for a shadowy mirage and asked to become members. Laughter. The impossibility of Palladism becomes plain as the nose on one's face, only because of the supernatural elements we filled it with. But these devilries were a warning only for those who do not believe in those devilries described in other books, in pious books. Asmodeus carrying Miss Diane off onto the Garden of Eden is no more extraordinary than Master Satan taking up Jesus Christ himself on top of a mountain and showing him all the kingdoms of the earth, which is round. Various voices. Bravo. Either one has faith or one has not. Laughter. Besides this first category of hoaxed people, however, there is a second one, and members of the latter one were not fully hoaxed. The good abbots and monks who admired Miss Vaughan because she was a converted Masonic Luciferian sister have the right to think that such female Masons exist. They have never seen or encountered any, but they may think that it is because there are none in their diocese. In Rome, it's another story. In Rome, all information is centralized. In Rome one cannot ignore that there are no female Masons other than the wives, daughters, or sisters of Freemasons, admitted to banquets, public feasts, or those who meet separately, very decently, in private societies comprising feminine elements only, such as the Sisters of the Eastern Star or the Daughters of the Revolution in the United States. Signs of approval. When one thinks about it, it is easy to understand that if Masonic sisters exist, such as the anti-Masons imagine, there would have been conversions and confessions a long time ago. The eagerness with which Miss Vaughan's alleged conversion was received in Rome is significant. Please notice that Monsignor Lazzareschi, delegate of the Holy See to the Anti-Masonic Union's Central Committee, led a Thanksgiving Triduum be celebrated at the Church of the Sacred Heart in Rome. End quote. Here, Taxil admits to fooling Abel de la Rive, so he would write the 3 paragraphs that anti-Masons laid to Albert Pike. Quote 12. I shall recall 2 typical facts. Under the pen name Dr. Battelle, I related, and under that of Miss Vaughan, I confirmed, that the Masonic temple in Charleston contained a maze, at the center of which stays the Chapel of Lucifer. Interruptions. M. Oscar Havard, the Bishop of Charleston, declared this to be an imposture. Leo Taxil. So it is. I was going to say so in a moment. But do not triumph yet. Wait a little. I said that in the Masonic temple in Charleston one of the rooms, triangular in shape, called the Sanctum Regnum, has as its main ornament a monstrous statue of Baphomet, which the High Masons worship. That in another room, a statue of Eve comes alive, when a Templar mistress is especially agreeable to Master Satan, and that this statue, then, turns into the demon Astarte, for a moment alive, and gives a kiss to the preferred Templar mistress. I published the alleged map of this Masonic building, a plan which I designed myself. Now, Monsignor Northrup, Catholic Bishop of Charleston, went to Rome expressly to assure the Sovereign Pontiff of the highest fantasy of these writings. This journey would have remained unknown if Monsignor Northrup, on his way to Rome, had not let himself be interviewed. Which is how what he came to tell the Pope became public. He had come to say, "It is false, absolutely false, that the Freemasons of Charleston are the chiefs of a supreme Luciferian rite. I am especially well acquainted with the most important ones. They are Protestants, inspired by the best intentions. Not one of them considers practicing occultism. I visited their temple. None of the rooms indicated by Dr. Battelle or Miss Vaughn are to be found there. The map is a hoax." On his return from Rome, Monsignor Northrup did not protest any more, and has kept silent ever since. Miss Diana Vaughn, on the contrary, replied to Monsignor Northrup's interview. She said the Bishop of Charleston was himself a Freemason, and she received the Pope's blessing. Sensation. Second fact. Under the signatures of Battelle and Vaughn, I recounted and confirmed that immense secret workshops were located in Gibraltar, under the English fortress, in which men-monsters fabricated all the instruments used in the ceremonies of palliatism, and Miss Diana Vaughn, asked about this by Roman high ecclesiastical dignitaries, enjoyed herself answering in her cutest style that nothing was more true, and that the forges of the mysterious workshops of Gibraltar were fed by the very fires of hell. Laughter. Monsignor, the Apostolic Vicar of Gibraltar, wrote, on the other hand, that he confirmed what he had been forced to declare to various people, namely that the story of the secret workshops was an audacious invention, resting on no foundation whatsoever, nothing whatsoever, and that he was indignant to witness the creation of such legends. The Vatican did not publish the letter of the Apostolic Vicar of Gibraltar, and Miss Vaughn received the blessing of the Pope. Applause. Many voices. Bravo Taxil. Should I recall some of the letters of approval received by Miss Vaughn? Various voices among the Catholic journalists. It's not true. There was no approval. Leo Taxil replied, "What? You dare deny it? Well, here is one, a letter of assent, and a weighty one. It is from Cardinal Parocchi, Vicar of His Holiness. It is dated December 16, 1895. Miss and dear daughter in our Lord, it is with a lively but quite soft emotion that I received your good letter of the 29th of November, together with the copy of the Nueve Eucharistique. His Holiness has entrusted me with bestowing upon you, on his behalf, a very special blessing. My sympathies have been all yours for a long time. Your conversion is one of the most magnificent triumphs of grace that I am aware of. Right now, I am reading your memoirs, which are just fascinating. Be assured that I have not forgotten you in the meantime, especially in my prayers to the Holy Sacrifice. As for you, do not cease to thank our Savior Jesus Christ for the great mercy which he bestowed upon you, and the magnificent token of love which he gave you. Do accept my blessing and believe me, all yours in the heart of Jesus. L.M. Cardinal Vicar. Here is another one, written on the official letterhead of the General Leading Council of the Anti-Masonic Union, which is the highest action committee against Freemasonry. a committee constituted by the Pope himself, a committee whose leader is an official representative of the Holy See, Monsignor Lazzareschi. Listen. Rome, May 27, 1896. Miss. Monsignor Vincenzo Sardi, who is one of the private secretaries of the Holy Father, has entrusted me with writing to you, by the order of His Holiness himself. I should also tell you, that His Holiness, read with great pleasure your Nuevo Eucharistique. Commander Aliotta had an interview with the Cardinal Vicar, concerning the veracity of your conversion. His Eminence is convinced, but he declared to our President, that he cannot bear witness of it publicly. I cannot betray the secrets of the Holy Office, is what His Eminence answered to Commander Aliotta. I am all yours, very devoted in our Lord, Rodolfo Verzacci, Secretary General. End quote. This is what has been used as source material, starting with Abel de la Rive, and many of the other early anti-Masonic authors. This, and if you follow their listed sources, you always end up back to Taxil's works. Can you, after listening to Taxil's claims, even begin to believe what the anti-Masons, and some church ministers let spew, even to this day? The truth is not in them, and one could not beat it out of them. On top of that, it is a bigger sin, to say what they do, is in the name of Christianity. This has been the partial confession of Leo Taxil, and his hoax on Freemasonry. Please see the link, on this video's webpage, for the complete confession, as the portions concerning Freemasonry were used here. The end.